Hi everyone, I'm Billy from ViewSonic, coming to you from our R&D headquarters here in Taipei. This year, we wanted to shake things up a bit and move away from the monthly live interviews on Instagram. Although it was really good to be able to have a live interview with the photographer and interact with the audience, it didn't really allow us to go in depth with any of their works and their processes and really visually communicate what we were talking about to the audience. With all that in mind, today I'm really excited to be able to interview Luke Stackpoole, who's a super talented British photographer specializing in travel, landscapes and nature photography, but with his own moody touch. Later on in the video, he's going to be giving us a sneak peek of his process, shooting, culling, and even editing, so do stick around for that. But for now, without further ado, let's hear more about him from the man himself. Hi Luke, it's great to see you again.
Hi Billy, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries. How's everything going?
Yeah, really good. Had a lot of cool adventures this year and can't wait to go on the next one. I'm heading to the States next week for a really interesting desert shoot, so can't wait to share from there.
Okay, now to start things off, tell us a bit about yourself, and I guess for those of the audience who might not be as familiar, like how you got into photography and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Luke Stackpoole and I'm a landscape photographer and ColorPro Ambassador. I have a real passion for landscape photography, wildlife, anything that can create that dramatic atmosphere in a photo. And what really inspires me to shoot is to help people to see the beauty of the wider world and also inspire them to visit these places for themselves. And that's what I hope to do with my photography and my art and more so in video these days as well. And my own journey kind of was inspired by other people on Instagram. I saw other photographers showing these incredibly beautiful, dramatic landscapes, nightscapes, shots with Milky Way and stars, all of that kind of thing just really made me feel in awe at the world around me. And I hadn't traveled much myself at that point. And I thought, hey, why don't I take some photos for myself and see what I can create. And at that time, I was working in finance. I hadn't ever shot with a professional camera before, or even a basic camera. And I picked one up in a Black Friday sale. I was shooting it in the streets of London for about a year, which got me really into that urban style. And in order to break out of that, I took a trip to Iceland, and everything changed from then on. I got really into landscape photography, into the natural world, and that resonated really well with my audience. And that kind of kickstarted my growth on social media. And I quit my job. I started traveling. I was posting from all around the world, and that really just took off, which I'm really glad for. And I'm very fortunate to be in this position. And since then, I haven't looked back, no regrets. It's a really interesting career and it allows me to see so much of the globe, and just excited for what's to come.
How long has it been then since you've, I guess, picked up a camera?
Yeah, so I first bought a camera in late 2017. I was shooting sort of non-professionally, just as a hobby, for about a year and a half. And then I took that kind of step, fully leaped into that world of photography in 2019. And since then, I've kind of grown my partners in this regard and also just seen so many destinations. And my goal this year is to go to places that are a bit more unique and less traveled, and hopefully bring attention to those places as well. I've got a couple of cool trips lined up. I'm going to Madagascar and Antarctica later in the year, which both I don't see many people going to, and I think that'd be really awesome for people to see what I can create out there.
How do you choose your destinations? Like what draws you there? And
Yeah.
I guess like once you're there, what do you kind of look out for inspiration?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it has to have that sense of dramaticism. It has to have energy. It has to look quite unique and perhaps alien, something that you wouldn't have recognized as being on planet Earth. I think that really draws me to a place, especially these days. Of course, there's all the destinations that are incredibly popular for a reason, and I'm drawn to those too because they're beautiful for very good reasons. But I think these days it's places where I want people to think, hey, is this really on Earth? Like, does this even exist? So I think that's what I'm trying to achieve. And I've been exploring a bit of Saudi Arabia this year as well. And some of the landscapes out there are incredible. And that's why I'm heading out into the desert actually next week to get that raw beauty and that untouched kind of sci-fi-esque landscapes. And I think that kind of draws me to a place.
So it's kind of like I guess, a paradoxical idea that it's somewhere on Earth that doesn't feel like Earth to the average viewer, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think somewhere where I can create something that people are gonna be wowed by, that they're not gonna have seen before, perhaps, and that will help me to stay unique, which is something I think is quite important in the creative world, in the artistic world, because it's tough to stand out from the crowd, and there's always got to be some fresh ideas to sort of stand out.
Yeah, I think that's like the hardest part at the moment, especially for a lot of aspiring creatives. I guess finding their voice, their style.
Yeah.
How long did it take you until you kind of found your style, or is it kind of like a forever, ever evolving process?
Yeah, I think you're right in that it's an evolving process. But from the very beginning, I knew I really wanted that sort of dark, moody aesthetic to my work, and that's kind of stayed true throughout my process. These days, not so dark, but it's still got that kind of moody appeal. I mean, it is quite dark, but it has a certain vibrance to it that doesn't make it look bleak. It just looks, let's say, dramatic. And I do use, in post-processing, that's kind of the signature look by me, is to kind of bring out those vivid colors and that dark aesthetic through my edit, because obviously you can't pick and choose the light that you're given in a scene. And I think that really works well in the atmospheres and regions in the north, such as Iceland and Norway and Faroe Islands. It already has that feel when you're there, that it's quite dark and gloomy, that the weather helps, and those kind of mossy greens and those towering peaks, they really help me to achieve that style. And that's why you don't often find me shooting in like sort of tropical environments or sunny beaches, because it doesn't fit the look that I'm going for. And I'm not trying to sort of give it that depressing style. It's more to give an impact and something that you'll feel inside of you when you're looking at a photo. And I feel like I can't achieve that feeling when I share something very bright and vibrant and happy. So I think that's my goal. And I guess in typical media that we see, films and things, June, for example, you do have that very dark aesthetic, almost dystopian vibe. And I think that does kind of invoke a lot of emotion in you when you're looking at this kind of art.
Now, let's talk workflow. I do try to kind of avoid talking about specific gear and equipment during these talks, because I think fundamentally they're not important to, creating a truly great image.
Yeah.
But I know we're going to get a ton of questions about this, and hounded in the comments if we don't ask. So, Luke, what camera system and lenses are you using at the moment?
I've got the Sony A1, which is kind of that hybrid shooting top model from Sony, which shoots 8K video, like 50 megapixel stills at a really high frame rate, 30 frames a second. So perfect for those wildlife moments. And I also used it as the primary camera, the A cam, for my India film that I just released. So I think it's a really nice combination of stills and video. And I pair that with my A7S III, which is a very capable low light camera for video. And I also use it for time lapses. So it's quite nice just to have as a second cam. I can have it on a tripod shooting a time lapse when I'm shooting like non-tripod work with my A cam, which is the A1. Lenses, I usually roll with the Tamron zoom, so 28-75, 17-28, and the 70-180. So that's kind of like the holy trinity. It's lightweight, sharp. If I want more like product work, I'll shoot with the Sony primes, like a 50-1.2. And then for wildlife, I shoot with the 400 2.8. So it's a bit of a heavy beast to carry around the world, but it's worth it for the images that come out of it. And then, of course, I've got the drone, which is the Mavic 3 Cine.
I think our viewers definitely going to appreciate that level of detail. And for any of you that are doubting, yeah, it's really about how you use it. And speaking of which,
Yeah.
are you more of a zoom landscape person, like a tele landscape, or you prefer your wides for those kind of scenes?
Yeah, I think I do like the wide just to get the full picture, but I do really enjoy shooting tele to with a person in the frame, and you get that amazing kind of scale element because of the compression that it gives you. Especially when I was in Namibia, I was shooting at 500 for a lot of the time because I was producing an ad for this lens, and it was crazy to see the depth that you can get with a long focal length in landscape. So against the dunes and the mountains, having a person in the frame really helps. So yeah, I think mixing it up is always a great shout, and that can help you stay unique as well.
And so, in terms of having a subject in the frame like that, is it usually like a fellow photographer for you, or you actually have like, do you hire models once you're there, or how does it go usually?
Yeah, I think it really depends. A lot of the time I'm shooting with an assistant or another photographer. We're just bouncing creative ideas off each other. And sometimes I'm posing for the photo, um, which I don't really like doing, but I think it depends. And it's always great to have a conversation on Instagram and your stories, see if anyone's around in these areas, because a lot of the time the locals will know some really cool spots, and they're more than happy to be in photos. So that's a really cool tool. Like using Instagram as a kind of social element in finding people to shoot with is always fun.
And let's talk peripherals. As you mentioned earlier, you are a ColorPro ambassador. And so which model of monitor did you end up adopting?
Yeah, so I'm using the ColorPro VP2786 4K monitor. So it really helps me to see the full picture of my images. I mean, using this laptop, it's good on the road, but when I'm home, I really like to delve into the details and actually to have this really accurate color in my workflow. And the peripherals that come with the monitor are really useful. You know, you got the color wheel, which allows me to edit settings on the fly. And it can also come in handy when you're color calibrating. So it's actually got an inbuilt lens around the back, as you know, and you can put this on the front of your monitor and it will auto calibrate the colors for you. And I think that's really useful for creators to know that their monitor's always going to be very accurate, because it means people are going to see their work in the way you want it to be seen.
So now that we've discussed the tools of the trade, let's discuss the trade. As I mentioned earlier, Luke is going to be dissecting one of his wonderful images for us, and now is basically that time. So Luke, which one do you have for us today?
Yeah, so the image I'm going to be talking about today is actually from Taiwan. It's a street in Jiaofen with these really lovely lanterns going all the way alongside up this stairwell. And we managed to capture it in this really unique atmosphere with all the rain coming down. A little bit about why I chose this place and the model and the environment, the time of day. I wanted to kind of invoke that sci-fi, almost cyberpunk element to the shot, and that's always easier when it's night. You get the lanterns lit up. We did go during the day, but it just didn't have that special atmosphere about it. And of course, it was more busy, more people around. So the rain certainly helped in that regard. There's no one around to ruin the shot. I had one of the assistants walking up into the frame to give it that kind of special human element, and it draws people closer to an image when there's the element of a person in there. The time of day, of course, the night, it allowed those lights to be shining, and then we just got lucky with the rain. And having that umbrella just kind of drew it all together and allowed it to be almost magical. You can see the raindrops coming down throughout the frame, which is often quite difficult to get in an image when it's raining. You can't always see those drops, but because of the sort of lights, we've got that fluorescent blue behind and then those orange lamps. It shone on the raindrops, and it gave it this really mystical, magical feeling about it.
Looking at your photograph, it was a really interesting take because a lot of people go to Jofen thinking, oh, okay, this is the place that Spirited Away is based off. So they tend to go for more of the, I guess, the more traditional fantasy styling when they come to the color grades. But Your kind of sci-fi-esque take on it was definitely unique, and it wasn't what I was expecting you to come back with when I heard you were going. And I think surprisingly of all, when you said it was great to have the rain there, and anyone that's from Taipei knows it's like the scourge of your existence when you go up that mountain. So I think that's a really unique perspective.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because we couldn't see much else of the place while we were there, but it really helped in those city environments. And rain also helps when you're shooting street with like reflections, so you get the lights reflected in puddles and things like that. So sometimes the bad weather does help an image.
And when it comes to rain, do you prefer to slow your shutter speed or hasten it to kind of freeze it?
I wasn't really thinking of that at the time. I was kind of nailing my settings to stop the motion blur of her walking up the street. So I wanted her sharp. So that was shot at around 1/200th of a second, I think. And I guess it seemed to work well for the rain there. You got a little bit of motion in it, but not too much. Keeping it kind of in that central 1/200th, 1/250 kind of area would be good to capture the raindrops. Yeah.
And to get the shot, how many, I guess, attempts did it take, or did you kind of just have that vision lined up when you got to the area?
No, I was very wet by the end of it. Didn't have an umbrella myself, so completely soaked through because I just really wanted to nail the shot. I probably shot around 200 photos down that alleyway, and I've shared a few different unique angles, kind of over the shoulder, no one in the frame, and then someone in the frame. So it's good to kind of mix it up, and you can just utilize that location for more than one photo. But I think that one that we're showing now, and I think it's my favorite. It's got a little bit of kind of motion. It looks like she's walking up, but she's sheltering from the rain. And I think, yeah, just don't just expect you're going to nail it with one shot. I think it's always good to take more and cull when you're back home.
What are some of the things you look out for when you are culling?
Yeah, good question. I think it's culling's like the least favorite part of my workflow,
Yep.
especially because I take so many images, and I should really get a bit better at not being so trigger happy on the shutter because it does fill up the hard drives and it does make my life a bit of hell when I'm back home. But I think what I'm looking for is obviously the technicals. So if it's sharp, if it's in focus, rule of thirds are kind of accounted for through the image. But also, let's say something unique. So if I haven't seen this angle before, I think that helps. And something that makes me feel like that's the one, that's the one that's bringing the emotion in the photo. And you can usually see that when you're cycling through, and you can kind of use a hotkey, which to make it easier, and just tap, the number keys on your keypad just to rate them when you see these really nice frames. And that helps to speed it up rather than going like one by one and just deleting one by, and just going quickly through and just you suddenly see the one you like. I think that's like go with your gut instinct. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah. So it's partly technical stuff to call out all the ones that you know have messed up, but most importantly, it's kind of your creative gut feel.
Yeah.
Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, it's time to discuss editing. Pay attention. Luke is going to proceed to share with us his processes and kind of the areas that he focuses on. I think everyone's going to gain a lot from this. So, Luke, take it away.
All right. So I'll jump into it. Okay, everyone. So I'm in Lightroom Classic now, and this is the desktop program that I use to edit all my photos. I find the software really good to organize and to color grade. So that's my app of choice. I've got 5 different versions of this image here in Lightroom, and they're the different stages of my edit. So I've got the final image here, which I'm going to put in full screen for you to see. And everything is colored and graded, and we've got some darkening and some brushes throughout the image to really give it that dynamic aesthetic. But I'll show you as we walk back through the image, we have various different levels of editing. As you can see, the image really transforms from this raw file here. So I've gone over why I chose this place and use the model. But we really want to take this image to the next level with editing. So my vision for this was quite a sci-fi, cyberpunk vibe, let's say. And I really wanted to bring out some blues, as the image is entirely pink throughout this image. And that's something I'll do later in the edit. But that's in the back of my mind because I know that's the end result that I want to achieve with this edit, is pull back a little bit on those pinks. I want to give it a more two-toned look throughout the photo and bring in some blues, and also raise the shadows and give it more of a dynamic aesthetic, because right now it's quite dark and muted and a single tone. So here's the raw file, which I've slightly cropped just to get the horizon straight. Then we're going to brighten it up. So this is basic exposure settings. This is basically raising everything to a more neutral standpoint, whereby I can then edit the colors and gradients and tone curve and all that kind of thing. So this is really just flattening everything out, raising it to a level that I can actually see what I'm working with, because the shadows were just far too harsh. Of course, the image right now, it looks grainy, it looks washed out and a bit boring. So we'll skip to the next part. But yeah, as you can see, it really does help to get that balance right. And I shot underexposed because I really wanted to keep these lanterns, the nice colors and the light balanced. And if we'd shot any brighter, these are going to be way overexposed and we won't be able to see this nice text and writing on the lanterns. And the Sony camera can really handle this kind of noise level, this shadows down here. You can just raise it without too much noise in those shadows. And as you can see, when we brighten up those lights, they're already a bit overexposed. So then we go to the next step, which is our coloring, our tone curve, and our highlights. And as you can see, what I've done here is I've sort of added contrast throughout. I've added a split tone blue gradient to the highlights. And these oranges, I've gone from like a pinky look now to an orange look. And that's done in the color section of the HSL color. And we can just change the hue of those oranges. What I have also done is to sort of added a bit more blacks to the shadows. So I've crushed those blacks somewhat, but kept a semi-faded tone curve throughout. So as you can see, the blacks aren't completely black. There's a slight fade to them, but they do have more contrast throughout. And the general all-around color, we've got blue in the shadows, blue in the highlights, and then the midtones, and the main color throughout is that nice orange. The blue and the orange are really nice complementary colors, so they offset each other quite well, and it gives it a real nice balance to the image. As you can see, I'm not bringing in too many other colors to the photo. We've just got those two complementary, but they work quite well to balance against each other. We've then got this next step, which is kind of darkening things a bit more, which we're using graduated filters, and I can quickly show you the menu for these. So I'm using these add new masks, and I'm doing a linear gradient. And what I've done there is just dragged it in, and it's kind of added like a more darkened foreground to lead the eye and lead the viewer up the stairs there. And this light up here was looking very different to these ones. So I desaturated it in the next stage of the edit and darkened it somewhat. And as you can see, I know it looks a bit funky now when you're staring at it, but it does balance quite well against the rest of these. And it makes sure that the eye isn't leading up to this area of the photo, because we want the viewer's focus on that subject in the middle, leading up those stairway. The final step of the edit is just to fix the tint. Was looking a little bit green, so I pulled it slightly pinker. And then, of course, you can probably notice already is those heel tool, the spot removal brushes. And you can see down here, up in the sky here, across here, I'm just removing those bits that I deem distracting on the whole image. So all this kind of messiness down here, you can see it goes away. And that's just done with the Q button on my keyboard, which is this tool up here. So those are mostly the changes that I've done throughout the image. And I'll just jump back into the before and after again. So you can see a really dramatic shift as we go through. We've started with this quite pink, dark shadow image, but it's nicely exposed for us to then work with. We've added some color and blue back throughout the photo, and then got rid of those distracting elements. And we're left with this really nice kind of sci-fi-esque scene, and everything is balanced pretty nicely.
And we're back. Thanks so much for sharing your process with us, Luke. I think our viewers, especially those travel, landscape, and nature photographers, will be super appreciative of all the insights that you just shared with us.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to share.
But also, if any of you in the audience are excited to learn more and want to go even deeper into it, I believe, Luke, you offer a course on your website. Is that right?
Yeah, I have my own editing course, so it's called Lightroom Masterclass. If you want to learn some more in-depth tips, then go check it out.
Whether you're a beginner or an experienced photographer, if you kind of want to improve or brush up on your shooting skills, culling to editing, and basically trying to find your own voice, you can find his course at withlukestudios.com and explore further. Unfortunately, that pretty much brings us to the end of the talk today. Luke, thanks so much for joining us. I think I speak for everyone when I say it was an absolute pleasure getting to know you and learning so much from your work and gear.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun to chat, and yeah, hopefully we can do more of these in the future.
But before you go, do you want to share with the audience any upcoming projects of yours?
Yeah, I've been working more in the video space recently. I just finished up a film that I shot in India, and of course, I've been using the ColorPro monitor to edit and grade in Premiere. And then the next couple of weeks, I'll be filming out in the desert in California. I'm going to be making a sci-fi short, so really can't wait to share that. But it should be a really fun one, and yeah, getting more into that video style of work is really kind of liberating and helps me to stay on my creative toes.
And for those of you in the audience who want to keep updated with Luke's latest work and everything he's talked about in the talk today, make sure you follow him on his socials at withluke. Follow us at ColorPro on Instagram. And if you're interested in the monitor he's using, the BP2786 4K, there will be a link in the description for you to find out more on our website. Thanks for watching, and see you again.
Thanks very much, guys. See you next time.